What is up, everybody? My name's Big Cam and welcome back to another series breakdown. And today we are finishing out the Netflix Daredevil show. And also I watched Defenders because after season 2 of Daredevil leads directly into Defenders, I also had to watch Luke Cage, Iron Fist, and Jessica Jones to know what's going on in that show. But if you do watch the first seasons of Iron Fist, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, in the first 2 of Daredevil, you do understand and get what's happening in the Defenders a little bit more, and it gives you a little bit more personally. You're like, yeah, I like this a little bit more. But if you haven't watched, the first 2 seasons of the Daredevil breakdown are currently up on the channel, and the episode breakdowns for Daredevil Born Again are coming out weekly as the show comes out. Episode 4 comes out Tuesday, so stay tuned for the breakdown coming for that on Wednesday. And this video should be coming sometime this week. I don't know if it'll be coming out Tuesday before, or Wednesday morning before that video, or like Thursday the day after, or Friday, or this weekend. But this video will be coming out this week, and go make sure you check out my other Daredevil content and everything that you might want to see if you are a Daredevil fan. But let's get right on into it, shall we? Defenders opens with episode 1 titled The H Word, meaning what Jessica Jones is now a hero, is what Patsy tells her. And in this episode, I'm going to do a brief summary for the Defenders just because, you know, it's not as integral to Daredevil Season 3, but the finale of Defenders leads directly into episode 1 of Daredevil Season 3. Episode 1 ends with us finding out that Elektra is still alive because she died at the end of episode 13 of season 2 of Daredevil. So she's still alive and she's with the Hand, and they rebirthed her with their like magic voodoo shit. Episode 2 of the Defenders is titled A Mean Right Hook, referring to Iron Fist and his mean right hook that he lands on Luke Cage's jaw, and Luke Cage is like, Jesus Christ, I've never been hit so hard in my life. But in that episode, we also learn that Sigourney Weaver's character, she's playing a Alexandra, who is the head of the Hand. And we actually learn more about the Hand and why they're called the Hand. And they're an organization called the Hand, and there was 5 different members that were the leader of the Hand, and she's like the head member of the whole thing. And it's like, ooh, okay. We learn that they killed one, so there's 4 fingers left of the Hand, and they gotta take them out one by one, and that's kind of what the whole series is about, is taking out the Hand. But episode 3 is titled Worst Behavior, and this is when the team starts to individually figure out what's going on, and they all kinda come to one location and then end up at the end of this episode coming together to fight against the Hand and Sigourney Weaver's character. And then episode 4 is titled The Royal Dragon. This is the name of the restaurant that they're hiding out in, taking, you know, some time to regroup and become a team and work together against these people. And this is like the location they hide out at. Episode 5 is called Take Shelter. The Defenders and Elektra go round 2, and Jamis from Dune, I don't know the actor's name, but the black guy from Dune that played Jamis plays a character called White Hat, and he gets killed with his head sliced off by Stick in this episode. And this is also the episode where we get, hey, nice ears, and he goes, they're horns, which is just like a hilarious meme that I thought was so funny, and I had seen before, but I didn't realize it was from Defenders. But, you know, just Jessica Jones fucking with Daredevil, and like, the whole time she's like, what kind of blind lawyer are you? And finally she sees him in his suit, and she goes, nice ears, and he goes, they're horns. Episode 6 of Defenders was titled Ashes, Ashes, and we learned that Iron Fist is the key to what the Hand wants. And Elektra comes and kills Stick and knocks everyone out and takes Danny, the Iron Fist, to the Hand and kills Sigourney Weaver's character and says that she's the new boss. And then episode 7 is titled Fish in the Jailhouse. After everyone was knocked out by Elektra, they all wake up getting questioned by the police, and Elektra takes Danny to a door, and the Iron Fist is the key to open this door, and Elektra gets him to punch the door, and it opens up to like this skeleton of a giant dragon. And this is the same building that had the 40-story hole in it from Daredevil Season 2. But so Danny opens this door and we see a giant skeleton of a dragon, and this is definitely ancient, and this is why they're down so deep, because this is where the last dragon died hundreds of years ago, and the substance that the hand is after is in the dragon bones. And that's, I believe, what substance they use to bring back people from the dead, and why they're so powerful, is they use like dragon bone substance to revive themselves. I think that's what's going on here. And then episode 8 of The Defenders, only 8 episodes, which is nice, short and sweet. We start out seeing Karen and Patsy, right? So Jessica Jones' friend that's a great reporter and like investigator, and then Karen Page, who is a great investigator and reporter for the Daredevil series, getting to see that type of crossover. I mean, like, it's little characters, but like seeing Karen and Patsy cross over and like interact and like work on a case together, that type of stuff is really cool, and I'm glad that they did a Defenders like this, because, you know, Marvel should be doing more stuff like this, having other shows connect to one bigger thing, and it feels right and it feels good, and Netflix was doing it long before Marvel. Insanity. So the building that they were infiltrating in episode 7, they decide that they need to explode it and take it down and set off bombs, and so the bombs go off in the building, and the team makes it out, but Matt and Elektra get buried underneath the whole building. We think that they're dead, and we also learn that all this takes place over like a week or so, but everyone thinks Matt's dead, and we end the episode seeing that he's still alive. So it's like, oh boy, he's alive, what's up? Which leads us directly into the start of episode 1, titled Resurrection of Daredevil Season 3, and this aired October 19th, 2018, and we open on Matt falling and ending up washing out a sewer drain, and is still alive from the events of the Defenders, and a nun at his church, St. Agnes's, nurses him back to health, and Matt's been resting for several weeks here at St. Agnes, where he grew up, and he is deaf from one of his injuries from this building falling on him and the explosions. He's deaf in one ear, which, you know, he's already blind, and now he uses his hearing to see, and now he can't see out of one ear. Like, poor Matt's really not doing well right now. We see Karen goes to Matt's place to see if he's there. She doesn't believe he's dead, and she's been getting his mail and paying his bills for him, and we see a flashback of a conversation between the two of them after he told her that he was Daredevil at the end of season 2, and Matt says he's done being Daredevil, and Karen says she's not so sure that Daredevil is the problem. Thinking Matt's the problem, Matt just goes, ouch. Oh. Hurt my chest to hear that. I was like, ooh, I really wanted them two to be happy together, but apparently not. Foggy comes over to tell Karen that they need to move on from Matt, and that Matt's really dead, but Karen can feel it. He's not dead. We then cut back to the church, and Maggie, Matt's nurse nun, his sister Maggie, sets a bedroom up for him down in the laundry room, and Matt thinks the road to the warrior means he can't have friends and connections anymore, like Stick was always telling him all along. Now that he's dead, Matt is really pivoting down the path of Daredevil only, you know what I'm saying? We cut over to Fisk in prison getting told by his lawyers that the government is going to charge Vanessa as an accomplice if she steps foot back in the US. We then see that Matt is training to get back healthy, and Maggie sets up a boxing sparring match for him to see if he's still got it, but with his bad ears, you know, with the bad bum ear, it's very hard for him to see and fight, and, you know, he starts to beat up the guy, but then ends up taking quite a beating. But we see that even after the beating, the Man in the Black returns in the Man in the Black mask, you know, Daredevil season 1 outfit, and he's like perched up on a rooftop and like on a church pew and like holding on to the top of it. I'm like, all right, that's an artsy good shot. I like that. And we see that the Man in the Mask saves a dad from getting beat up by some dudes, and they end up escaping, but Matt lets these guys beat him up, and he smiles with blood pouring out of his mouth and enjoys it, almost like he's, you know, having some penance, you know, like repercussions, some punishment for his actions. We then close out episode 1 with a character that will be throughout season 1, Special Agent, FBI Agent, Ray Nadeem, and he is celebrating at his house with his family as his sister-in-law is cancer-free. But he's having money problems, and his job won't give him a raise until he fixes his finances. And like, how can he fix his finances without getting a raise? And like, he's due for a raise, but they won't give it to him. So something's going on behind the scenes here. He can't get a raise. So his boss gives him a new job, his new job is to go see Fisk in prison, and Fisk wants to make a deal to help Vanessa, and the credits roll on episode 1, leading us into episode 2 titled Please. And we open this episode with Matt beat up back at St. Agnes, and we see Agent Nadim taking down some Albanians that Fisk gave information on. So Fisk is now a rat, and, you know, Nadim is successfully taking down criminals with this information that Fisk is giving him. We then see Fisk get shanked in prison, and it gets called a snitch, but then just sits there before the cops come in, and you're like, huh, this isn't the Kingpin we know. Like, he would have killed everyone in that room just for witnessing him get shanked. Like, what's going on here? So, this guy shanks him, and then cops rush in, but we cut over to Sister Maggie talking to Matt, and she advises Mr. Daredevil, as she calls him, to give himself some time to heal, or he's going to get himself killed. We then see Karen is still a reporter at the Bulletin, and she's writing a story about people living around Midland Circle getting lung cancer, and her boss says, alright, enough of that story, and puts her on a different story. Agent Nadim goes to see his rat Fisk, and Fisk says he can't help him or Vanessa if he's dead, and it's too dangerous in prison. Matt goes to church and hears people talking to God, and Matt says to Maggie, he's Daredevil, not even God could stop that now. So Matt's kind of having this crisis of faith with his Catholic, religion. Karen, her new job that her boss gave her was to go see the daughter of the man that got attacked, and he's in a coma at the hospital. And the daughter says that they were saved by some guy in a black mask, and it's the people that Matt saved the other night. So Karen now is like, okay, Matt's alive, Daredevil's out there somewhere, like what the hell, I knew he was alive, but I need more proof. We then see Agent Nadim has a meeting with the DA Tower about Fisk being his informant and needing to get him out of prison to save his job. We then see Foggy goes to Nelson Meats, his family deli shop, and he's there for a family party, and we see that Foggy's mom is the same woman that played the Penguin's mom in the Penguin series, and I think her name is Dee Dee, is what Colin Farrell kept calling her in interviews, but yeah, Dee Dee is Foggy's mom in this series back in, 2018, 2019 or something when this came out? 2018? We then see that Fisk is getting put on house arrest and transported by Nadim in an agent, Ben Poindexter, who they call Dex. And Matt finds the cleaners he was looking for and beats these guys up and calls the cops on them. Foggy talks to his brother about him taking over the family deli business when Karen comes in and tells him that she thinks Matt's alive, but Foggy thinks she's crazy, and she leaves. Matt goes to the daughter and father that he helped in the coma at the hospital, and he tells her that he caught the guys that did this to them, the cleaners that he called the cops on. And she says, thank God for you. And Matt says, he didn't help you, I did. So Matt's like, really having a crisis with this God guy. He's like, nah, fuck him. If he made me the devil, I'm gonna be the devil. And you're like, okay, Matt, calm down. We then end this episode on seeing that Fisk is in a transport, and the car in front of them gets blown up, and the car flips over, and the Albanians come to kill Fisk. But one guy wipes out everyone single-handedly, taking no prisoners and shooting headshots and throwing knives and stuff and projectiles and killing people with them, with showing great accuracy, no misses. And this is Agent Ben Poindexter, who may or may not have some bullseye DNA in him. But Matt, in his bad ear, his ear returns back to full health, and like his hearing returns, and the first thing he hears is that Fisk was let out of prison by the FBI. And this is where credits roll on episode 2, leading us into episode 3 titled No Good Deed. And we open this episode on Fisk getting into the shower, and he is now on house arrest, but we see how he gets here, and Nadim is still alive, and the rest of the FBI agents rushing him to his penthouse, when we see that Fisk's lawyers tell him that Vanessa is missing, and they cannot find her. And he's like, find her! And they cut away. And then Karen is at her boss Ellison's house having dinner, and her boss tries to set her up with his nephew, and they both get calls during the middle of this dinner. When it starts to get awkward, they both get calls about Fisk getting let out of prison, and they both have to rush into action to go be reporters. We then see Foggy is with Marcy and has been having nightmares and blames himself for Matt dying because he brought Matt the Daredevil suit the night that he died in the Defender series. Matt hears Fisk in his head talking to him, like the sound of his inner voice is now Fisk's voice. And then we see Karen just misses Matt at the protests outside Fisk's building, and she confronts Nadeem for letting Fisk out. Oh yeah, still a prisoner in a $20 million penthouse? She got a pretty good point. Matt makes his way into Fisk's building. Fisk's lawyer tells him that Vanessa is in a safe house in Barcelona, and Fisk says she's not safe there from the Albanians. She needs to be returned to me. We see that D.A. Tower is going up for re-election, and Foggy goes to see him and talk to him about reversing Fisk's house arrest. But he doesn't go for it. He says it's out of his control. It's federal jurisdiction, not town or state. But Foggy kind of knows that he's rolling over his belly and not wanting any problems. We then see Nadeem goes to the hospital to see the families of the other officers that died or were hurt in that, transporting of Fisk. And Fisk tells Agent Poindexter that he owes him, that he's never seen a talent quite like his, and that Dex saved his life and that he owes him one for this. Dex is like, okay. But Dex tells his work evaluation therapist about a girlfriend, a bartender named Julie, and gets cleared for duty. The guy's, oh, okay, he's normal, he's got a girlfriend. Or so we think. We then see the man in the mask goes and questions Fisk's lawyers in the parking garage about why Fisk flipped on the Albanians and not any other criminals. Why the Albanians and not someone else? He could have flipped on anybody. And Matt finds out that he's really doing all of this for Vanessa, but that's not what he asked, right? But the lawyer gave him some other information. And Matt hears Fisk in his head tell him, that's it, let the devil out. And Matt realizes he beat up a bunch of agents here, right? But they are all agents trying to protect Fisk and his dirty lawyers, right? And so Matt's not necessarily doing something that he would do, but he didn't kill any of these guys. So he just, roughed them up and knocked them out. Maybe put a few of them in the hospital, but hey, it is what it is. Karen goes to tell Ellison, her boss, that she found a connection between the man in the coma and Fisk. And he's like, oh boy, what is this? We then see Matt tells Maggie, isn't it funny I got my hearing back and the first thing that I hear is Fisk is free? And she's kind of like, ugh. So you're saying that God did this on purpose? And he's like, God freed a monster to spite me. And Matt says he's going to stop the monster for good this time, meaning he's going to kill Fisk. And Maggie says, be careful you don't become the monster yourself. Ooh, good points. Sister, wise little sister. We then cut over to Dex taking pills, watching Julie close her bar up and go get some pizza across the street after her shift. And he, told the therapist, oh, it's pizza night with me and my girlfriend. And she's eating pizza at the place across the street and he's eating it in her car, in his car. So not exactly a girlfriend. He's kind of more stalking her, which is just like, what is the deal with this guy Dex? He is just creepy and weird in all of the ways. Then see Matt goes to talk to Foggy at a bar. And Foggy's like drunk and still so sad and depressed that Matt's dead. And he's drinking at the bar and all of a sudden turns around and sees Matt just standing there. And Matt's like, Foggy. And he's like, this isn't real, is it? And he's like, I'm real. And he hugs him. And you're like, oh, they're bros. They love each other so much. But Matt's alive and Foggy's pissed, but he's also happy that his friend's alive. But then Matt tells Foggy that he's leaving the Matt part of himself behind and going full Daredevil, and he's just there to tell Foggy to stay out of it. And Matt is not sounding like himself and sounding so cold and heartless, and he leaves, but we learn that Matt was really just there to steal Foggy's wallet. And you're like, oh God, really? What kind of Matt are we seeing in season 3? Heartbreaking stuff. Which is terrible, because the last time we saw him and Foggy really on good terms was like season 1, early season 2, maybe the end of season 2, and then not really at all in season 3. And then in Daredevil Born Again, if Foggy and him aren't really on good terms. It's like, oh God, I just want to see the three of them together and happy, but that's not a good story, I guess. But we close this episode on Fisk's lawyer telling him about the man in the mask beating him up in the parking garage. And Fisk looks out at his city and goes, ah, so the devil is back. And credits roll on episode 3, which leads us into episode 4, titled Blindsided. And we open on an alarm clock at 5:50 in the morning, and Fisk is staring at the ceiling and stands up right before Dex and the other agents rush in to do a room check, thinking that they were about to catch him off guard and trying to blindside him. Is this where the title comes in? That Fisk is not blindsidable, but they're trying to blindside him? We see Matt goes back to his apartment to get a suit, because if he's going to be posing as a lawyer, he needs to look the part. We then see Foggy losing his mind back at his apartment, telling Marcy he has been ghosted by a ghost. And Matt's not dead, and he shows up and tells me to leave him alone. He's like, I've been ghosted by a ghost, which is funny, but also like, poor Foggy. But Marcy tells him that he should run for DA against DA Tower, and you're like, so Foggy's gonna be the district attorney? He's a good enough lawyer, he could do it. We then see Matt goes to a prison and uses Foggy's bar ID to pose as Foggy Nelson and go talk to one of their clients in jail. And Matt wants to know why Fisk flipped on the Albanians, and the client's like, are you crazy asking me that? And punches Matt in the face, and everyone in the jail starts mean mugging Matt. We then cut over to Foggy telling Karen that Matt's still alive and that Foggy will not lie for Matt anymore. And Karen immediately storms out of her place and barges into Matt's apartment. Matt, where are you? And he's like, he's not here, Jesus. But, you know, so Karen now knows that Matt is officially alive from Foggy. But Foggy tells Karen the Matt he saw isn't the Matt from before, and that maybe a part of him is still buried under Midland Circle after Defenders. Matt, back at the hospital, the nurse tries to drug him, and so he's like has to sit there because he got punched in the face by that client. And in the nurse's office, he's like, sitting there, and the guy tries to drug him, and Matt's like, what the fuck did this guy just try to do to me? And Matt, then the phone rings in the room, and Matt picks it up, and it's Fisk on the other end of the phone, and he says, you're not Franklin Nelson. And we're all like, really? Yeah, did you figure that out? But Fisk says, for a blind man, you have very impressive reflexes. Fisk still remembers the last time that Matt Murdock spoke to him and threatened Vanessa, and maybe he thinks that Murdock is the reason why Vanessa can't step foot in the United States at the moment. But I think they just, are doing this because Fisk is a bad guy. Not necessarily because Matt told them, but this is what Matt threatened Fisk with at the end of season 2, right? But so Fisk remembers the last time that he spoke and threatened Vanessa, and this is not something that he can forgive. And all of the prisoners' cells open and they get released, and now the cell in the prison goes crazy, and Matt's got to fight his way out, and we get a hallway sequence this time as Matt Murdock, the lawyer, not Daredevil. And you're like, oh wow, I didn't know I needed a Matt Murdock hallway sequence. Like, we've gotten the Man in the Mask, we've gotten the Punisher, we've gotten a Daredevil hallway sequence, now we're getting a Matt Murdock lawyer hallway sequence. But not only are all the prisoners and Fisk owns the prison, he also owns all the cops in the prison too. So they start attacking Matt. So he's got to, fight all these people that are trying to kill him, but knock all of them out because Matt's not a killer. We then see that the Albanians kind of save Matt for a second. And Matt tells the Albanians that Fisk ratted on them, and that the head of the Albanians, Vic, tells Matt that Fisk shanked Fisk, that the Albanians wanted nothing to do with it, and framed it all on the Albanians so he could get himself out of prison and into his penthouse. So all of this was just Fisk's plan to get out of here. We then see Matt makes a deal with the Albanians that he will find the guy that Fisk had shank him in prison, or they will come after Matt. And, this huge 11-minute wonder sequence between the hallway fight, the deal he makes, and then Matt's escape. And you're like, oh my god, has this all been one shot? And it's so impressive. We see Fisk gets his dinner brought to him by Dex, and Dex takes a bite out of his burger thinking it's going to piss off Fisk, but Fisk just cuts around it and eats around it, and then eats his burger with a spork instead of like a man with 2 hands. Ketchup. Nadim tells Dex that they are launching an investigation into him for the motorcade attack. So, he's not supposed to tell him, but the FBI is going to be investigating Dex for all of the people and Albanians he killed, right? Why are there no prisoners? Why are there no, people like that? And he's like, you're the only one alive with Fisk? What's going on here? And, he's just a really good shot, and was doing his job, but he's going to be working for Fisk very soon, most likely. Foggy then goes to the police union function and talks to Detective Mahoney about Fisk, and Foggy wants to give a speech, but Brett's like, no, but Foggy does it anyways, trying to get the cops to sign on a write-in ballot to help Foggy run for the DA against Tower. And some of the cops are like, all right, where do I sign? Fuck Fisk, fuck DA Tower. I'll sign, you know, like, even though they're giving him a hard time at first, they kind of want Foggy to be the district attorney, you know, like, Foggy's a pretty good guy, pretty good lawyer. We then see Karen confronts a group of catcallers and pulls a gun on them and scares the crap out of all of them. We then see that Karen tries to go get information on the bank Fisk is laundering money through. Dex tells his other officers to go get some coffee, and he looks at the security tapes of the cops questioning Fisk, and Fisk lied to cover Poindexter's ass. And Fisk looks directly into the security camera after pretty much knowing that Dex would be watching this back and listening. And you're just like, Jesus, Fisk is so smart and so ahead of the game. But so Dex turns off the cameras and goes to talk to Fisk himself and comes in hot asking, what's your game? I don't need any favors from you, convict. And he goes, no, but sympathy. And Fisk says he's upset that they aren't celebrating Dex for saving his lives and saving the lives of other officers, but instead they're investigating him? Doesn't make any sense. So Fisk is kind of like on his side, and Dex is like, huh? You like me? We're friends? Huh? Like, Dex is like, I've never had somebody like me. But Fisk is just trying to use this man and his skills. We then finish this episode on Matt waking up in the back of the cab after his escape, and the driver has been taken out of the vehicle, and a new driver, right, has stolen the cab and jumps and dives out of the cab at the last second, and the cab goes flying into the ocean, and Matt's in the back seat, and this is where we cut to credits with the cab and Matt in the back seat flying into the ocean. You're just like, this blind man is in the back of a cab after just waking up, and now he's in the water, and he's probably blind, just like, where the fuck am I? I can't swim, damn it. Like, but any other blind man would have been in the water and not known which way was shore, right? But Matt Murdock isn't an ordinary blind man. So the credits roll on episode 4, and we pick up with episode 5 titled The Perfect Game. And we open on Dex in his apartment, seeing just how OCD he really is, and that Julie girl, who isn't his girlfriend, but is his girlfriend in his mind, on a picture in his apartment. And he's a very strange man. But we see the cab getting pulled out of the water that Matt was in the back of, and Fisk's lawyers tell him that there was no corpse in the back of the footage, but it probably just got washed out and fish ate it or something. And Fisk has the footage of the blind lawyer kicking ass in prison, and he goes, I don't believe this lawyer is dead, and he's not a normal lawyer, not a normal blind man. So maybe this is Fisk at this moment putting together that Matt is Daredevil, or maybe just, you know, putting together that Matt is a dangerous target, and he then rats on his next target, a lawyer named Matthew Murdock. So clearly putting Fisk's sights on Matt Murdock and trying to take him out. We then cut to Dex on a run, and he's just following Julie as she's on a run. And, you know, she stops, he stops, and you're just like, this guy's stalking the hell out of this poor woman. What a creep. But the FBI breaches Matt's apartment, and his wet clothes are left on the floor. So you're like, okay, Matt's still alive. The clothes from the back of the cab are on the floor here. And the FBI is taking Fisk's new information and raiding Matt Murdock's apartment. Crazy. We then see Karen going to question and find out information on the Red Lion Bank, goes to talk to Felix Manning about laundering money for Fisk, and he knows all about Karen and her family, and he says he's not a fixer, he makes problems disappear. So this isn't just a banker or a fixer, this is a guy that is the guy that makes people disappear. You know what I mean? Like, not a man to be fucking with. And Karen's like, okay. And then she leaves there scared as hell with her gun in her purse. And she's being followed. And we see that she gets brought in by the FBI to Matt's apartment. And Nadim asks them to bring her in. And he asks her, when's the last time he seen Matt Murdock? And she says months, and Nadim says that they worked for Fisk before, and pulls out a picture of James Wesley, the man that Karen killed back in season 1 or early season 2. Either way, Karen killed somebody, and she's now, you know, has been in the clear for a while, thinking this would never come back, and then all of a sudden has the picture of the man she killed right in her face, and she's like, I've never seen him in my life, other than the one time we worked for Fisk. But she kind of slips up and lies to him in the wrong way, and he like picks words that she said wrong, and he's like, she's suspicious, she knows something, and she's not telling me the whole story. Yikes. We then see Karen tells Nadim that Fisk is playing the FBI and making them go after lawyers that put him in jail instead of Felix Manning and Red Lion Bank, and she tells him all her theories that Fisk owns the hotel that he is prisoner in. We then cut over to Fisk reading files about Dex and seeing a flashback of Dex as a child getting pulled from pitching a perfect game. The title of the episode, Perfect Game. And so he's all upset and turns very angry after the coach pulled him from his perfect game, you know, throwing a no-hitter type of thing. And Dex throws a ball off of a post, and it ricochets and hits the coach in the back of the head, and he kills the coach. And I don't know if he was doing this on purpose, but his accuracy is pretty deadly, even as a young age. So clearly Dex has been a killer since he was a child. We then see young Dex talking to a good therapist and getting him through his troubling times, and she's a very nice lady, but the nice lady has cancer and she ends up dying, and he doesn't know how to cope without her, and she gives him the tapes of every session that they've ever had, and he wants to kill her for leaving him because she's abandoning him, but really she's just dying, and he just doesn't know how to cope without having somebody in his life that he can look as a role model type of thing. And she says that he has to find another person, and we see him working at the suicide prevention hotline, and that the other person is Julie, and he's like, oh, Julie's so nice. And we see that he seems like he's gonna talk to the guy and tell him to do the worst things imaginable, but when Julie is there, he's a good guy and is helping these people, but when she walks away, he's like, why don't you take the gun? That'll be good. Yeah, 38, that's a good caliber, it'll get the job done. You know, like, it just starts, you know, almost talking these suicide people into the suicide rather than preventing it. And then Julie walks back around, he's like, no, you'll be okay, man, just talk to me. Oh, that sounds hard. You know, like, he's helping people. So there is like a good guy in Dex, but there's just, unless he's got someone good around him to keep him good, he is a psychopath. So we see Fisk putting together what's the deal with Dex and why he's following Julie. And Fisk says that the city needs a new villain, and I think I found him, meaning Dex. And we then see that Dex goes to a bar that Julie works at, and he's sitting there, and all of a sudden she comes over to him and starts talking to him, and he's like, oh god, I'm supposed to just be stalking you, and she recognizes him from working at the suicide hotline back in the day, and they end up start talking, and he's like, hi, you know, like all frozen and shit. But then we cut over to Nadim goes to Nelson Meets to question Foggy about Matt Murdock, and Nadim says that he thinks Matt is leading a double life, a lawyer by day and criminal by night. And close, but not quite. He's vigilante by night, not criminal, but same, I guess. Dex and Julie end up having a couple drinks after her shift, and it's going well, but he is almost normal, and then he slips up about knowing too much about Julie's life, and she's like, how did you know that? I didn't mention any of that. I have to get home to feed my dog. And he's like, you don't have a dog. She's like, how do you know that? That's so weird. And he weirds her out, and she runs away, and he ends up sitting there like, oh, you know, like freaking out, spazzing out, crashing out like Dex does many times throughout this season. We then see that Foggy talks to Karen, and Karen tells him about killing Wesley, and he's like shocked about this information. He's like, what? You killed Wesley? What? Like, he looks at her just so dumb, like, what? Like, how is it possible? And I mean, Karen is this nice, innocent woman, but man, is she a deadly killer on the inside. And like, she can do some damage. She's a savage. We then see Dex back at his apartment, punches holes in the wall and trashes the place, throws a knife directly at the picture of Julie, and it hits right in their forehead on the picture. And you know, he's fully crashing out, and then he has to listen to the therapist tapes to try and calm down. And we end the episode seeing what happened to Matt after the cab, and you know, coming home drenching wet, and he stumbles into his apartment, and we see that the clothes that he left in the middle of the floor on his apartment soaking wet, and he's still wearing the cross that Maggie left for him. So you know, even though he's having this problem with God, he's still Catholic, and he wears that cross around with him. And we learn that Matt heard everything, that the FBI were about to breach, and he was hiding up on the roof while this was all happening. And, you know, and hears the whole FBI raid in his apartment, and he's like, what the hell is going on? And they're like, the suspect is armed and dangerous. And he's like, armed and dangerous? What do they think I did? What happened? Like, the credits roll in episode 5, and you're like, Jesus Christ, all these cliffhangers just making me get right into the next episode. Which is good, because it keeps you moving. But we are now on to episode 6, The Devil You Know. And we open on Karen waking up after she told Foggy she killed Wesley. And we see more of their conversation. Foggy tells her she's not a bad person, she's a good person. And she's like, then why are you looking at me so crazy? And Foggy says, I'm looking at you like this because you're my kind, nice, sweet friend, and you went through something terrible, and I didn't know about it. And, you know, Foggy's just such a good friend, but he's like, you shot someone in self-defense. And she's like, I shot him 7 times because I wanted him dead, and I kept clicking, but it ran out of bullets, you know? Like, so she shot him as many times as she could shoot him. And, you know, Wesley deserved it. He was a bit of a scumbag. The next morning, we see Karen's woken up, and she hears someone's coming through her window, and it's Matt, the man in the mask, and he just turns around and goes, hey, Karen. And she just doesn't even say anything and just goes, you owe me back your rent. And Karen just knows Matt way too well, and Matt's like, you want to yell at me? And she's like, what for, right? Like, she's just giving up on yelling at him and talking to him. She's just like, who cares? You're just a dickhead. And she's not wrong. Karen says to Matt, you wanted something from Foggy. What do you want from me? And Matt wants her help to find the guy that Fisk had shank him. And he's like, what do you say? You want to help me? And we think that Karen's going to fold and say yes, but she just goes, no. And I'm serious about the rent, and walks away. And you're like, oh my God, like, Matt, you fucking dickhead. Whew. We then cut over to see Dex having a full crash out over this Julie incident, and he's got to soothe himself with the therapist tapes. And we see Fisk's apartment now having his luxury items and art and all his nice stuff put in it, when this is supposed to be his prison cell. But all of a sudden he's got this fancy stuff getting put back in it, and you're like, ooh, Fisk, such a dickhead. But we see that he has his white suit, like his comic book accurate Kingpin white suit, and now he's fully back to Kingpin and not just Wilson Fisk anymore. But Karen, of course, finds info on the guy that Matt asked to help her. Even though she didn't want to, she finds information on the Jasper Evans who shanked Fisk, and Foggy thinks she should help Matt because she's a good friend, not because he deserves it, but because she's a good person. And Foggy's right, so he ends up helping Karen, or Karen ends up helping Matt, but not telling Matt she's gonna help him. So we see Dex goes in 2 hours early and turns off the cameras to go in to feed Fisk, and he calls him out and says, I know you got Julie the job downstairs at the bar. What are you doing here? What are you trying to do? And Fisk just changes the subject a little bit and says, when I was a boy, I killed my father. You know, and you're like, whoa, Fisk, you psycho, fuck. But this is like that classic Fisk, like, voice, just, when I was a boy, my father. So Fisk tells this FBI agent, Dex, about killing his father when he was a boy. And Fisk says he understands Dex and that they are alike, and Dex leaves and he's like, what the fuck? Fisk just told me more incriminating evidence but likes me and wants me to work with him and has my back and says we're like each other. What is going on? And we then see that the FBI is throwing Dex under the bus, and we see a newspaper with his face on it and it says FBI investigating one of their own. And Karen goes to find Matt at St. Agnes's and meets Sister Maggie for the first time. And Maggie says, it wears you out, doesn't it? Saving Matt from himself. And Karen says she can't do it anymore. She's done. And Maggie tells her of Matt as a boy and having crazy nightmares, and he would cry out for help in his sleep. And one night she decided just not to go. And Matt never asked them for help ever again and just shut everybody out. And yeah, deservingly so. And Maggie tells Karen, when someone is in need and tries to push you away, you have to find the strength to hold on tighter. And this is great wisdom. Although it started with her making huge mistakes, this is great wisdom at the end there. If someone tries to push you away, 90% of the time, it's not because they want to push you away. It's because their own internal thoughts and feelings and monologues are so complicated that they don't know how to process these feelings. And if you really care about someone and they're trying to push you away, just hold them. Just hold them, squeeze them tight. That's what they need. We see then Dex is having to turn over his badge and gun, and he's getting put on administrative leave. And Karen is out looking for the Shanker, and she goes to a crack house and buys drugs to see if she can find Jasper Evans and the guy that Matt's looking for. But they try to grab Karen, but Matt shows up and beats up all these guys. And Karen's like, so you knew where his last location was? So why'd you even ask me for help? And were you waiting for me? And he says, I hoped. And she's like, okay, fine, I'll help you, whatever. And Karen tells Matt that the FBI is all over her and Foggy. And Matt says that he'll turn himself in and maybe he'll get lucky and get locked up in the same cell as Fisk. And even with Karen, he's not acting like old Matt. And Karen's like, Jesus, what is this? Foggy said you were different, but you want to go to jail now? And you want to get locked up in the same cell as Fisk? Like this is going to just be like a boxing match locked into a cage with him? We then see Matt interrogates Jasper Evans, and he says, if I talk, Fisk kills my son. And Karen gets down and dirty with him to make him talk and goes, listen, if you don't talk, I'm gonna write the article like you talked anyways. And he's like, so you're gonna get us killed? Like, so Jasper Evans has to help Matt and Karen here because he's left with pretty much no options. We then see Foggy goes to Nadim's office to represent Matt Murdock as his lawyer, and he says they are going to bring in Jasper Evans to prove Matt's innocence, but Nadim and his boss think that it's just a bluff. We then cut over to Dex, still crashing out at his apartment, and he gets a call from Fisk, and he tells Dex that his mother passed when he was in jail, and Fisk offers him a chance and says he will never abandon him and sends a car for him. So Fisk's mother died while he was still in jail, and she kept a lot of his stuff and kept the hammer that he killed his father with, and but Fisk has a job and another chance for Dex and offers him a job and sends him a car. And Dex goes with Fisk's fixer. We then cut over to Matt, and he goes to turn himself in and prove his innocence. They are going to do this meetup at the Bulletin, so it's as public as possible. But Matt hears screaming downstairs. And right when Jasper is about to go on record and tell, the feds everything he knows and tell the newspaper everything he knows about Fisk and why he was shanked for Fisk and Fisk made him do it, the power goes out in the building, and we see Dex is dressed as Daredevil and comes in and starts killing civilians. What? Right, so this is where the title of the episode comes in, The Devil You Know. This is the devil you don't know, and you would rather the devil you know, because Matt Murdock is a way better Daredevil and not a killer like this Daredevil poser, right? Like, so a Daredevil Matt Murdock, when he's dressed in the black mask, I call him the man in the mask or the man in the black mask. And then when he's dressed as Daredevil, I call him Daredevil. So this fake poser Daredevil, I just call Dex Devil. So if you're confused when I'm saying Dex Devil, I'm referring to Dex Ben Poindexter as Daredevil. You get it? Okay, cool. We then see Dex throws one of his batons at Foggy, but Matt catches it. And then we get the Man in the Mask versus Daredevil. And Dex is good at throwing objects and keeps, you know, ricocheting things and hitting Matt. And Matt's like, what the hell? And so Matt's got to try and get up close and personal to try and stay in this fight. And he's much better, you know, close counters and punching and dodging and stuff like that. And Dex is much more of a bullseye and can throw things with great velocity and accuracy. But Dex stabs Matt with a pair of scissors and drops a shelf on him, and we see him go into the room with Jasper Evans and say, hello Karen, it's nice to see you again, right after he kills Jasper Evans, their witness, with Karen's gun. And right, so, you know, the newspaper knows that Karen knows Daredevil in the past, so this is all just Fisk's plan. Go in there, kill Jasper Evans, the man who shanked me, and make sure you talk to Karen Page and say, hello, Karen. It's nice to see you again. And it's so creepy seeing Dex as Daredevil. It just looks like there's like this serial killer wearing Matt's outfit, and you're just like, whoa, this is so wrong. But I will say, I mean, like, the Daredevil suit with him on it in Netflix's season 3 looks good, but man, would it have been better if he just came in as Bullseye in the comic book accurate Bullseye suit with the logo on the head and the blue, and that's kind of what they went for the episode 1 of Daredevil Born Again, but we still don't kind of know how he got to that point, right? We're just like, why is he dressed in blue now, you know? Like, but nobody cares. We're just like, yeah, he looks great, you know? Like, but he never dresses like that at all in this series, so... The FBI shows up to take down this Daredevil, and Daredevil beats up the FBI in the stairwell, beating up Nadeem and all of them, and, you know, then escapes, and we see Fisk's great plan was just to frame Daredevil with Dex posing as him, and Matt has to pull the scissors out of his chest as he tries to escape without the FBI noticing him, and Nadeem and the FBI are like, who did this? And Nadeem says, it was Daredevil, and the credits roll. And so now Matt's a criminal and Daredevil's a criminal. Great. Awesome. Matt's just like, just another day in paradise, cool. But we then go to episode 7 titled Aftermath, and this is the aftermath of the Daredevil murders at the Bulletin, and we open on Fisk's apartment, and his luxury art's back up on the walls, but Rabbit in a Snowstorm is still in the possession of the government, and actually got bought from the government by someone else. But we learn more about that later. We also see Fisk has a secret room behind his closet that leads 2 or 3 stories down, where he has a woman running surveillance for him, and Fisk has cameras on everything and has been watching everything and sees his Daredevil plan is working perfectly as it's all over the news, and he smiles like a fat kid loving cake. You know, he's just like, I'm so smart and happy, right? Like, just fat bastard. But Matt crashes out a bit, saying Fisk found someone fast and skilled to kill him, and poses Daredevil, and Maggie, the sister Maggie, stitches him up. But Karen is getting questioned by Nadeem, and he blames her for all of this. Is there any other Karen that was in here? So he mentioned you by name, so you know who Daredevil is. And he's like, she's like, that wasn't Daredevil. He's like, he was in the Daredevil suit. I saw him. He looked like Daredevil. He's Daredevil. If he barks like Daredevil, he walks like Daredevil, he must be Daredevil. Like, he was being mean to Karen. I don't like it. He was being very blamey. We then see that Matt goes to see Melvin Potter, the former suit maker for Fisk and suit maker of the Daredevil suit. But Fisk made him make the suit for Dex. And we're like, uh-oh. So poor Melvin Potter here is back under Fisk's, like, thumb. And he's like, you said you'd protect me. Fisk made me do it. He said he was going to hurt Betsy. We then see Foggy goes back to his house and bangs Marcy with I thought I was gonna die sex, and she's like, that was really good, like, I mean really good. And then he asks her to marry him, and she's like, what the fuck? Foggy, when you propose, I want to make sure it's from your heart, not from you thinking you were gonna die. And you know, she's got a point. But we cut over to Nadeem asking for 2 days from his boss to figure out if Fisk is playing them or not. Karen goes to visit her boss Ellison at the hospital. He was stabbed in the process of the Daredevil and stuff, but he'll live, but he got hurt. But so many people in his office were murdered because he was trying to help Karen and Daredevil showed up. And he's like pissed, and she kind of implies that she knows who Daredevil is. And he's like, wait, you know who Daredevil is? You need to tell me. And if you don't, you can clean out your desk. So Karen doesn't give up Daredevil's name and kind of gets fired. We then see that Matt goes to Melvin's new suit shop, and Melvin tries to lock him in because Fisk is making him, and Matt and Melvin fight, but Fisk's plan was for the FBI to show up with Matt locked in this cage with the Daredevil suit, and the FBI find the two of them together, right, and find Matt Murdock with the Daredevil suit. So maybe Fisk doesn't know that he is Daredevil, but he's trying to frame Matt Murdock as Daredevil. So either he's trying to expose his real identity or he's trying to frame him, but it's not clear yet if Fisk actually knows that Matt is Daredevil. But Matt, talking to Melvin, figures out, like, why would Fisk call the police on me? And he's like, he wanted you to get caught with the suit. And Matt gets information out of Melvin, and Melvin tells him that he doesn't know who the fake Daredevil is, but he's an FBI agent. I heard Fisk and him talking about it. And then Melvin gets arrested, so Matt kind of lets poor Melvin get arrested. And Agent Nadeem goes to see what has now become of Fisk's prison penthouse. And he asks Fisk straight up, did you have Jasper Evans released? And Fisk says to Agent Nadeem, your desperation diminishes you, Special Agent. Good night. And just lets him leave. And Nadeem's like, what the fuck? He didn't even deny it. And we see Matt is still hearing Fisk in his head, and he's like, the hero of Hell's Kitchen feeds a simpleton to the feds. What a great headline that will be. And talking about Melvin, and he's like, Melvin made his bed when he started working with you again, right? So he's talking to himself, but talking to Fisk in his head, and kind of weird, but kind of cool, but, kind of weird. But we see that Matt and all the terrible things that he's thinking about himself, or just thinking in general, his conscience is now Fisk's voice, and this is just not good for Matt. He needs to get Fisk out of his head. Matt then goes and tells Melvin's Betsy, and learns that Betsy is a parole officer, and Betsy then learns what happens to Melvin and that he got arrested, and she's like, he used to fucking say you were the best and you were a hero, and she cusses out Daredevil, the man in the mask, and Matt's like, you've been warned, be safe, get out of here. And we then cut over to Foggy. Has been digging through all of his files since the night before and hasn't showered, hasn't changed, but has now figured out what Fisk is up to. At least he thinks. We then cut over to Karen crying in her car, and she calls home and talks to her dad and asks if she could come home for a while. And he says, no, it's not a good time, but you can call anytime. And she says, I was just trying to help someone, Dad, and it just went all wrong. And her dad pauses for a second and says, yeah, it's what you do, Karen. And you're just like, oh, poor Karen. Her dad is such a dickhead. But we learn later why her dad might react like this to her, and it's very sad. We then see Nadeem gets home very late from a long day of work, and his family set a surprise party for him to celebrate his promotion. And he's like, I don't even know if I'm going to still have this promotion, because the guy that got me this promotion has been playing me the whole time, and Fisk is playing the FBI, and now Nadeem knows it. But his family tries to celebrate with him, and he goes downstairs to get some extra drinks for the party, and his door's open, and Matt's there, and the man in the mask tells him that he is the real Daredevil and that Fisk is playing them, and tells Nadeem, who do you think the real danger is here, me or the fake Daredevil? And Nadeem's like, alright, what do you got? And Matt says, the fake Daredevil is an FBI agent, and Nadeem's like, alright, keep talking, and the credits roll on episode 7, leading us into episode 8, Upstairs, Downstairs. We open episode 8 on catching up with Dex back at his apartment after he killed everyone at the Bulletin, and he's listening to his therapy tapes and cleaning up his apartment that he had trashed, and he's vacuuming in his Daredevil suit, and it just looks funny as hell, but also like, wow, this guy is a serial killer. Like, the Zodiac killer, like, is Dex, really. Like, it's crazy. We then see Nadim goes into work the next day, hearing the conversation he had with Matt, the man in the mask, at his house, saying Fisk is playing him, and realizing that Dex is super suspicious. We then see Dex run down Julie to explain himself, which is creepy as hell, but for some reason she listens to him. We then see Nadim meets the man in the mask in an alley during his work day, and tells him about Special Agent Ben Poindexter, and says that they are going to slip in his apartment and look for proof that Dex is working for Fisk and that he's Daredevil. We then see Dex talks to Julie in a coffee shop, and she's way too nice, and she tells him what he really needs is a good therapist, and he's like, I had one, she died. And she's like, okay, sorry for your loss, and she feels bad, so she's like, okay, I'll help you, Dex, but don't make me regret this. And I knew from this moment on, I was like, oh, poor Julie, she's not long for this world. But we cut over to Foggy going to see Karen at her place, and she's not doing well. Looks like she hasn't slept in days. And Foggy tells her what he's learned about Fisk, in that he needs her help to just do one more article to expose him, and she tells him that she was fired, and he's like, alright, tell Ellison about our plan, and that should get you your job back. We then cut to Fisk seeing the security footage of some guys killing Julie, and you're like, oh, I knew Julie wasn't gonna last, and Julie's now gets killed by Fisk's guys, and Fisk is like, ha, good, just as planned. But Nadim calls Dex into the FBI headquarters, and he tells him that he called a friend to sue the Bureau for wrongful suspension. But this is just Nadim buying Matt and him time to sneak into Dex's apartment. And Matt can smell the Daredevil suit, the latex of the suit, in the the bulletproof stuff. He can smell that the material was in the apartment, and says it was in the safe. And Matt picks the safe with his magical hearing fingers, and opens up the safe, but the suit isn't there. He had moved it, but he can tell that it was there. But Nadim's like, I can't do nothing with you just saying it was here. I need proof, man. I need proof. But what they do find is the therapy tapes, and they start listening to all of them, and Dex comes home as they're listening to him. And they are still inside the apartment when Dex comes home, but Dex is downstairs and shooting at them while they're upstairs, which I think is like one of the meanings of downstairs, upstairs in this episode. We then see Nadim get shot, and Matt and him are pinned down, but the cops show up, and Matt and Nadim are able to get away with some evidence, a recording of the tapes. So Matt has, like, footage, or surveillance tape footage. He listened back to all the tapes, but didn't have to steal it, so Dex knew that they knew. You know what I mean? Like, so Matt has some evidence that Dex is a crazy child, and has, like, the evidence of these therapy tapes. And, can now get to know who this Dex guy really is. Which definitely is going to set Dex off even more. We then see that Karen is supposed to be at the DA dinner with Foggy, and she's trying to actually go into Fisk's place. And Foggy at the DA dinner goes after DA Tower and starts pressing him about Fisk, and Foggy then says he's going to be running for DA too, and a write-in ballot. And Foggy's getting filmed while he's giving his speech, and he's doing really well, but then he realizes where Karen actually is and where she could actually be, and he's like, oh fuck, and he runs up out of there in the middle of his speech, and they're like, choke in your middle of your speech, and Tower gets a big laugh. But we then see Karen gets to go see how Fisk is actually living in his prison, and she gets to talk to Fisk, and she tells him that she knows he killed his father with a hammer, and she was with Ben Urich when he talked to her mother, Fisk's mother, and she wonders if there's any part of Fisk that isn't broken. And he just sighs and says, at what point did you learn of Mr. Murdock's secret life? And she's like so shook that he says this at all. And just the look on her face confirms to Fisk that Matt is Daredevil. So now for sure Fisk knows that Matt's Daredevil. And she goes, okay, you want secrets? And she goes, I got a secret of my own. She tries to get underneath his skin and tells him that she killed James Wesley. And he stands up and kind of screams, and she was trying to get him to kill her in front of FBI agents, but the FBI runs in and kind of like cuffs her. because Foggy told them that she was going to kill him, and you know, but pulls her out of there in just the nick of time, because Foggy shows up and is like, listen, what are you thinking? And she's like, well, it would have gotten us some good evidence on Fisk if he killed me in front of all of them, wouldn't it? And he's like, yeah, but you wouldn't be dead. And she's like, oh, that's not the worst thing. Poor Karen. She's going through it a lot right now. We then see Nadim got shot. He's trying to patch himself up, and he got shot by Dex in that whole debacle there, that of trying to get evidence in his apartment. He got shot during that. So he's trying to patch himself up in the car. And we see Dex goes to see Fisk in his downstairs in the security, you know, room of his upstairs penthouse. So this is also the downstairs of his upstairs. He's like, this was here the whole time? And he says yes, and, you know, Fisk tells him that rage can't stay inside and that he should let it out, and Fisk likes to do it with a primal scream. And this was just honestly a test, because if Dex didn't listen to Fisk in this moment, Fisk probably would have just killed him on spot. But because Dex listens to his advice and, you know, lets out a primal scream, Fisk hugs him, and then the guys leave with, you know, the killers that would have been the cleaners to clean up his mess, leaves, and Fisk is like, alright, cool, I still have a weapon that I can use for some time longer, because he's loyal to me. We then see that Matt hears Maggie doing a prayer upstairs, and he's like punching a bag, and she's like praying at St. Agnes's, and she says, she like is talking to Jack Murdock, and she says, your son is too stubborn like you, Jack. Our son is too stubborn like you, Jack. And he's like, wait, what? Mom? So Sister Maggie has been Matt's mom this whole time as credits roll on episode 8, and we head into episode 9 titled Revelations, and we open on Matt going to see Father Lantham after hours, and he's gambling, shooting pool, and you're like, does a priest really do that? But, you know, this is after hours, he's trying to let loose a little bit. And Matt asks him if he knew that she was his mother all along, and he did. And we see flashbacks to young Maggie and how she met Jack Murdock, and he asked her to be his corner person, and she's like a young nun, and she's like, well, this is my first time ever seeing a fight, and he's like, oh, well, I figured a nun wouldn't spike my water or something. So, you know, he gets hurt, but in between rounds, and she's got to wipe his blood and give him some water, and this is where they fall for each other. They fall in love and have sex and have Matt. But we see that Maggie had really bad postpartum depression after her pregnancy, and she would just stare off and would hear the baby crying and felt like she betrayed God, and Father Lantham comes and takes Maggie back to St. Agnes to try and help her, but leaves the poor baby Matt with no mother and just his father that's a degenerate boxer himself, you know, like, and just leaves the two of them alone. But Jack did a decent enough job. Matt's a good kid. Nadim tells his boss and an OPR, like an internal affairs type of agent for the FBI, about Fisk and Dex, and believes that they are playing them. And Nadim's boss shoots the OPR internal affairs guy in the head with Ray Nadim's gun, and she's been working for Fisk this whole time. And she says, and then we see Fisk's like fixer comes in and says, do you understand the situation you're in right now? And he's like, what is happening? And Nadim's boss says, Fisk owns it all. Fisk is now your new boss, not me. And so we're like, what? How powerful does this go? How much does Fisk really own? And we're like, oh my god, Fisk really is Kingpin. And all of that happened in episode 9 was just before the intro. You're like, Jesus, his mother, you know, seeing the postpartum stuff, seeing him talk to Father Lantham, seeing Nadim, you know, and this shit. All this was just before the intro. You're like, Jesus, what an episode 9, what a start. We then cut over to Foggy and Karen, and she says she's running from Fisk, and after what she said to him, she's gone, she's running. And we see Matt left St. Agnes's after hearing that Maggie is his mother, and she's devastated he left, and Matt just goes to his old boxing gym and breaks in because the place is closed down and up for lease, so he like just breaks in and starts just setting up a new home base here. But Matt breaks in and starts, you know, setting up home base in this new gym, and he hears now his father Jack is the voice in his head. He's not hearing Fisk right now, he's hearing Jack Murdock's voice, and we actually see the actor that played Jack Murdock, who was only around for like the first 3 episodes or something of season 1, now getting a chance to come in at the finale of season 3. Just a good full circle arc for that 3 seasons. So Matt hears his father Jack talking to him in his head, and his father's like, I guess you know everything now, Matty. And Matt's like, yeah, everything I wanted to know. Fucking mom, my mom was alive the whole time. Why didn't you tell me? We then see Dex goes to Nadim's house in the morning, and he is now his new partner as they both work for Fisk now, and Fisk wants Daredevil. We then see Marcy tells Foggy that the footage of his speech is going viral and that he painted Tower as a pro-Fisk candidate and that he needs to work on his ending, but hey, good job. Matt tells his father in his head that he's going to kill Fisk. And you're like, ooh, he's really turning the edge, and he's like training for a big fight here, and he's like tying up his hands, and you're like, oh, Matt's turning killer. Or at least wants to. We then see Karen goes to talk to Sister Maggie about where Matt is, and she tells her that Matt's not coming back and that he learned that she's her mother. And she's devastated that she failed Matt as a mother twice when he was a baby and now again as an adult. And she offers Karen help though and says, you need to hide from Fisk. The church has been hiding people for years. Come on, I'll help you. We then see that Dex gets reinstated from the FBI back for duty, and Foggy at Nelson Meats and his family is proud of him for his video going viral, but his brother Theo comes in and tells him to take it all back, and he's got to release a report that says he didn't mean it and that he was drunk or something. And we find out that his brother is in debt with Fisk's corrupt banker, and that they got his brother, mom, and dad's signatures on a loan at the bank, and they all fudged the books to make this happen so they could all go to jail. And this is not good, just adding another little wrench that Fisk is trying to get at Foggy through his family, right? We then see Nadim sees a whole task force, like a whole bunch of these FBI agents that are all under Fisk, and he's like, Jesus, Fisk has dirt on all of you? And you know, they all go, hey, listen, we can't refer to him as Fisk anymore. He's called Kingpin. So now they all work for Kingpin. And Nadim starts to learn just how far back this Fisk stuff goes. And Fisk has been playing him the whole time. And he wasn't able to get a raise because of Fisk. And he got the job into Fisk informant, all because Fisk wanted him to. The cancer at the hospital, right? His sister-in-law's health insurance finally went through, and she was able to get cancer-free because Fisk, and the holdup was because of him the whole time. Like, all of it was because of Fisk, and he's been playing and planning this the whole time. We then see that Fisk makes them take off his ankle monitor, and he just walks out of his prison, and Fisk sets a trap for Daredevil, and Matt's gonna go do it anyways, and he has Muay Thai ropes tied around his wrists, like he's got some extra weight behind those hands, and the voice in his head turns from his father's voice into Fisk's voice, and we see Matt beat up Fisk and snap his neck, but this is all just in Matt's head, and this is what he wants, but not what he'll actually do, right? But so Fisk has a meeting with all of the families, and we see him like set it all up, and he's like sitting at this table, and you're like, oh no, Fisk is back. But at this meeting, Fisk tells all of them that they owe him 20% of everything. And one of the members disagrees, and Dex walks in and kills him dressed as Daredevil, and you see Daredevil standing behind Fisk, and you're just like, oh my god, Fisk now has like this power, like so much power, too much power. And as like Daredevil's standing there, Fisk goes, all right, the tax is now 25%, right? So he offered them 20%. One of them disagrees. He killed them. Now it's 25% of everything. And they go, your terms are agreeable. Okay. So the rest of them agree to give Fisk a quarter of everything that they make, right? So Fisk has to give them nothing. And he's the boss. And everything that they make, right? So his fortune is growing 25% every time their fortune grows, right? So Fisk is going to have lots of money, and we actually learn in Daredevil Born Again that they are loaded. So maybe this is the start of them getting loaded. We then end this episode on Matt shows up at the trap that we think he's at the trap, but he kills the lights and we see that he's actually at Fisk's penthouse and he's here to kill him. And he finds the security room downstairs and finds the woman in Fisk's security room. And she's like, "Are you gonna kill me?" And he says, "No, not you." And she goes, "Fisk? Oh, thank God. He has me trapped here." And he's like, "Wait, where is he?" And she tells him that he'll be back any minute and that he wants Karen dead. And this is where credits roll on episode 9. And you're like, Jesus, fuck, Karen's in danger. Matt was in his apartment like, oh, he was ready to kill him. But, alright. So then we go to episode 10 titled Karen. And we open on a flashback. And this is like the Karen-centric flashback episode. Learning all about why Karen has been hiding and all of the stuff she's been hiding since before she came to New York. And we open on a flashback of a house party. And Karen's dancing in a bra and hammered. And she's pouring booze down an ice luge for her friends. And then goes and does some coke and buys some coke and is selling coke. And a guy tries to rob her. And her boyfriend comes in and kicks his ass. And they leave. And we see younger Karen is living in a trailer selling drugs to college kids with this boyfriend. And she also works at her family diner called Penny's Place, which is named after her mother, and she works there with her brother and dad, and her brother is trying to get her into college and get her out of this small town. But Karen gets into a big fight with her family, and her dad's like trying to buy a new grill that he can't afford and keep this diner alive, but it's like, you know, failing and hemorrhaging money, and she ends up, you know, getting in a big fight with them and goes out to do coke with her boyfriend Todd and drinking and punishing herself for, you know, her life, and really is miserable and just hot, you know, drowning the pain with drugs and shit, you know what I mean? And they come back to Todd's trailer and they see that her brother Kevin has been burning down Todd's trailer, and Todd starts, you know, to beat him with a tire iron. And Karen shoots Todd in the arm. And he's like, "Are you crazy?" And she's just trying to get her and her brother out of there safely. But she, you know, starts speeding away. But she's drunk and high and full of adrenaline. And she's like, "Why would you do that?" And her brother says, "I already lost Mom. I couldn't lose you too." And she looks over at him for just a second and, you know, just wasn't looking at the road for a second and hits a guardrail and the car flips and her brother dies in the accident. So she killed her brother in a car accident while drunk and high. Ooh, poor Karen. And now we see that it's just Karen and her dad, and he tells her that the cop in town, like because of the small town, it's like one cop, and he tells her that the one cop in town is going to say that it was just your brother in the accident and that she has suffered enough and that the family has suffered enough. And he says, "Thank God your mother wasn't alive for this." And then her dad asks her to leave and says he doesn't want her here. So her only family left. Her mom's dead. Her brother's dead. The only two people that cared about her now, her dad is fully turned her back on her and asked her to leave. And, you know, you're just like, poor fucking Karen. But we cut back to present day Karen at St. Agnes's, staying where Matt was staying, and Fisk knows where she is and sends Daredevil to kill her at the church. And Matt comes to save her, but Dex throws a baton at Karen to kill her, and Father Lantham steps in front of her, and Father Lantham gets killed in the process, and Dex kills Father Lantham. And this sets off Matt with a rage, and we get Daredevil, the Man in the Mask, versus Dex Devil in the church, and it looks good, but it's also like really dark. And, oh, it's terrible. You're like, oh, poor Karen, this guy died. They're fighting in this church. He's going to kill Karen. But then Karen comes in to save Matt. And she hits friggin' Dex Devil with like a giant like flag, maybe, like the staff of that holds the flag, you know what I'm saying? Knocks him over, and then Dex Devil disappears. And we're like, what the fuck, where did he go? And this episode ends with Dex disappearing and Karen's holding Matt's bloody body on the ground. And it kind of looks like he's dead, but he's just kind of like hurt and passed out for the second. But the credits roll in episode 10, leading us into episode 11 titled Reunion. And we open on Maggie hearing the screams of everyone running out of the church, and she sees Dex as Daredevil hobbling up the street, and we as an audience see him kill 2 more guys in an alley because they saw his face. And he makes it back to the car, and he's like, we're not done. We are not done. And Nadim's in the car like, what the fuck happened? Why are you covered in blood? Why did you just go into the church dressed as Daredevil? Like, what are we doing? And, you know, didn't tell him that they were there to kill Karen type of thing. But clearly the job is not done, and he still wants to go in there and kill Karen and Matt. And we then cut to Karen and Matt still in the church, and he tells her who the fake Daredevil is, in that even if she does get to the police, that she won't be safe because he's an FBI agent, and says that they both got to get out of there. But the place is surrounded, and they hide downstairs where Matt would stay, and where Karen is now staying. And Matt tells Karen that he was in Fist's penthouse and left his only chance to come and save her. And he's very blamey, Matt, blaming her for this problem too, just like Nadim was blaming her for the deaths. Not Karen's fault. Fuck you, Matt. It's your fault. But they hide downstairs in a casket, and like they're stuffed in this thing, and they're like face to face, tight area in this casket. And Maggie sees that there's like blood on it, so like they could find him, but Maggie covers and leads them away and says, oh, they could be over this way, and leads the FBI searching in a different area. We then see Karen and Matt have a chance to talk and fill each other in on everything while they wait for the cops to leave. And, you know, that's what happens, and they talk about everything that we have already talked about in this episode. And we see Fisk has his conviction overturned, and he gives a public statement and now says that Daredevil is public enemy #1. And the cops are still looking for Karen and Daredevil, but Maggie's helping them stall, and the cops and the dogs are looking for them, and she's stalling all of them. And Foggy's brother is blaming Foggy for everything and saying, oh, you're a big shot lawyer. None of this would have happened, and Fisk would have never been targeting us if you didn't have to go be a big shot lawyer. And Foggy's like, that's not fair, but it's kind of true. But still, his brother shouldn't be blaming him for everything. Foggy didn't make these guys sign the false thing to the bank, you know what I mean? But as Foggy's brother is blaming him, he gets a call from Matt, and we cut over to Foggy coming to surrender Karen to the NYPD and not the FBI to safely get Karen out of there. But now Nadim really sets off Dex by letting them take her, and Dex is like, we are not done. We need to finish the job and kill her. We need to finish. We then see Fisk goes to talk to the woman that has his painting, The Rabbit in the Snowstorm, and both of them had the painting taken away from them by the government, and both of them say the painting represents people that they love, and Fisk says Vanessa would want her to have the painting, and she's like, should that matter to me? And he goes, no, but it matters to him, and he leaves. So he doesn't keep his Rabbit in the Snowstorm painting, even though it's his token from his love. We then see Brett Mahoney lets Karen and Foggy go, and they end up going and having a reunion with Matt on a roof, and the three of them talk and try to take down Fisk together one last time legally. And this is just great to see the three of them together, right? And they're up on a rooftop, and they're, happy, and, not necessarily happy, but they're together again. And we haven't seen them all three together in a long time. We then see that Fisk hears that Nadim let Karen go, and just takes like the jacket of the messenger, puts it over his face, and just punches his face to death so that Fisk doesn't get blood all over his hand in his white suit. So he's thinking about his attire, but he's also just still a murdering madman, Fisk is, and kills the messenger just for what Nadim did. But then we see Nadim rushes home to make sure his family's okay, and thinks that they're not because he sees a glass broken on the floor, but his son had just knocked over the glass. But Nadim's freaking out because people are coming for him, and he's a good agent, and guys do come for him, and Dex and the other agents come, and he takes a few of them out, but then Matt shows up and has his back and comes to, save Nadim, and Nadim can't trust him. And Matt says, but he can trust Nadeem. And Matt takes off his mask, showing Nadeem his face and who he is as Daredevil, and saying, you saved Karen Page tonight, I owe you one. And the credits roll in episode 11. And you're like, what? Matt just showed him that he's Daredevil? I guess so. But we then cut over to episode 12, titled One Last Shot, as this is their one last chance on taking Fisk down legally. But we open on Fisk hearing that Nadeem escaped, but Vanessa has landed and the two of them are now back together. And they're happy and hugging, but they've been separated for quite a while. We then see Matt, Foggy, and Brett help get Nadeem and his family to safety, and they're stashed at Officer Mahoney's mother's house. And, you know, we've been hearing about Officer Mahoney's mom and Foggy buying her cigars for a long time, but we hadn't seen Mahoney's mom. So it's just funny that she's here and you're like, ah, Mahoney's mom, she's helping them. What a legend. But they say to Mahoney and to Nadeem that testifying against Fisk is their one last shot, the title of the episode. And we cut to Fisk and he takes Vanessa to the building in the penthouse that he bought for her. And she says it's everything she's ever wanted. And Dex is still crashing out and kind of, you know, we hear like buzzing in his head, is like bees buzzing is all he hears when he's crashing out. And that's why he needs the therapy tapes to kind of soothe himself. But Fisk, you know, after saying, I'll never abandon you, he goes, I need to talk to you. And he goes, not now, and walks away from him. And Vanessa gets to look at a new penthouse, but she's tired and just wants a hot bath and a soft bed. And we see Karen tells Nadeem his sins don't have to define him. And Matt tells Karen her sins don't have to define her either. But Foggy gets Mahoney to pull over D.A. Towers so that Foggy can talk to him, to get him to hear Nadeem's statement. And Matt talks to Nadeem and gets to the bottom of why he really helped Fisk. And he goes, if you could tell them what you just told me, that's all you need to do to tell the DA and to tell the cops that, you know, Fisk is the real bad guy here. So Foggy gets DA Tower to come to hear Nadeem's statement, and Matt and Foggy want to get him full immunity for everything he knows and for what he's telling them. But Tower says the best he can do is 5 years for each count. He's a dirty cop. He did dirty things. You know, like, somebody's got to get punished. You can't just get immunity. And they're like, nope, no deal. But Nadeem takes it and says 5 years for each count. I'll take it. You know, it's much lighter than I deserve, but I'll do it. So, you know, he's sad that he's going to go to jail and his family he won't be able to see, but, you know, he's at least like, at least I'll be able to sleep with myself and not be a guy that killed Karen Page for Fisk because he told me to. Like, that's crazy. We then see Foggy says it feels good to be working together again and helping people, and it's not just rich assholes like at his last firm. And, you know, he's happy to have Nelson and Murdock back together, and Karen and the three of them back together. But Matt's like, don't speak too soon. We then cut over to Fisk cooking his morning omelet for Vanessa, and he can tell something is bothering her. And she says that she is feeling lonely and that she really isn't with him when Fisk guys come in and says that he needs to talk to him, and he walks away, not including her in her business. And she's like, doesn't like this. She feels very lonely. She's like, I want to be a part of everything, honey. I want to be with you. But we see that Fisk guys come in to say that Nadeem is going to speak in front of a court today, and Fisk tells him to do whatever it takes. I will not be indicted today. And Karen goes to see Ellison at his lunch break and tells him to call a press conference in that she has a statement to give to the press. We then see that Dex got Fisk's Rabbit in the Snowstorm painting back for him, and there's a little blood on the side of it that Vanessa sees, and she's glad that the painting's back in his collection, that she, you know, it's the one that they met on, right? Like, it's their painting. And she was like, I was wondering where it was. I'm glad it's back. We then cut to Nadeem going to the courthouse with Matt in the back of a van, and Fisk's guys open fire, killing the driver of the van, and Matt's got to get them out of there, and he's like in the back of the van going, he's like, you can't see, I'm not just gonna blind fire out of a van. He goes, point right there, there's a guy right there, there's a guy right there, there's a guy right there. And like, as Matt, the blind guy, being Nadim's eyes, they're able to get out of there and kill all the Fisk guys that came for him. And Matt's able to get Nadim and him safely to the courthouse. And Matt says, "Don't thank me. Just go get Fisk, please. Just go give your testimony." And Nadim gives his testimony to the jury about Fisk. Karen goes to talk to Ellison in the press outside of the courthouse and tell everyone that the Daredevil is a fake Daredevil and all the stuff that we know as an audience, but now she's telling the people of New York and it's becoming public knowledge. And just when Matt, Foggy, and Nadim think they won, Fisk gets to the jury and they don't indict Fisk because they're all scared for their lives from what Fisk got to the jury. And you're just like, God, Fisk runs everything. And Ray gets sick to his stomach and throws up and is like, Fisk is unstoppable. And he punches Foggy out cold and runs out of there because Nadim's got to do something, you know, to protect his family. And Fisk goes home to see that Dex got his painting for him. And Vanessa asks, should I see him as the new Wesley like he says I should? And Fisk is like, no. This painting is supposed to be with her. I said, like, I said the painting should stay with her. And she's like, well, he got it back for you, and like points at the blood on the side of it and like, should I be scared of him? And he's like, no, I'll take care of him. And she says that she really wants to be a part of his world and be with him and share his life with him fully. And he's like, well, I don't want you to dirty your hands. She goes, my hands have already been plenty dirty. The feds were already after me for what I didn't do, so I might as well be with you and doing it anyways if I'm going to get brought down in the process. So Fisk then takes Vanessa to his security room and shows her that he's watching everyone that he needs to. And they both hear that they have located Nadim, and his guys think that this is a useful guy to keep alive. But Vanessa says, don't you think it's better to remove the threat and maybe this Agent Poindexter can prove himself useful? So Vanessa likes the power of being in control and doesn't mind killing. We then see Nadim goes back to his house and records, you know, the crime scene of his house and records a goodbye video to his family. And Dex goes to kill Nadim, you know, leaving him dead in the pool that he was building for his son. And Matt hears that Ray is dead and says, no, we tried it your way, Foggy. We tried it one last time legally. And Matt leaves and the credits roll. So now Matt is heading into the finale and is out to kill Fisk and is saying it's the only way, like Frank Castle. It's the only way. It's the right way. We got to do it. So we then head into episode 13, titled A New Napkin, which I'm not sure why, but maybe it's because a new napkin is white, like the rabbit in the snowstorm, and when you, like, you know, take the schmutz off your face, now the napkin's dirty, so the new napkin of the thing gets blood splattered. I don't know. I'm not sure why this title is called A New Napkin, but it is what it is. We open on a split shot of Daredevil up on the rooftops in Fisk putting on his white suit, and Fisk has a surprise event, and he plans to propose to Vanessa, and they want to bring love back to the city. And you're like, oh man, what a great shot of the two of them side by side, as like it's a split shot of like they're looking at each other, but one's on the roof and one's getting dressed in his white suit looking out at the city. Oh, really, honestly, I'm kind of bummed that I'm over with Daredevil, but at least we got Daredevil Born Again coming out week to week, so I'm not like completely done with Daredevil in my life. But now that I've gotten through these 3 seasons, I almost want to rewatch it just for fun. We then see Matt torturing Felix Manning, Fisk's fixer, and beating him for information, and Matt hangs him upside down off of a building with like the one rope tied to his leg, and is just kind of like standing there with his legs off the side of the building, just kind of, tell me what I want to know. And the fixer tells Matt about Julie Barnes' murder and that Vanessa ordered the hit on Agent Nadim. We then cut over to Mahoney finding Fisk's guy hanging off the roof in the morning, right? So he's been there all night, but he's not talking to Mahoney. But Foggy comes to talk to Mahoney, and Foggy believes that Matt won't kill Fisk because he's so Catholic that Matt believes everyone is worth redemption. But Foggy gets called in by the FBI and Poindexter and says that he will be very useful as the next DA. and brings him into an office, and we see that Nadim's wife is there, and they are trying to push her to get something out of her, you know, about Nadim, and she's smart and gives Foggy the phone with Ray's last message that the last video he has on it, and Foggy is there and he will help her. So she's very smart, and you're like, oh boy, I thought they were gonna kill Nadim's wife too for no reason and leave the son, you know, parentless, but Foggy's there to help, so it's all good. We then see Matt calls Dex on Felix's phone, and Matt says that he's coming for him and his suit, and Matt starts to get in Dex's head about the tapes and his old therapist, and tells him about Julie and that Fix had him killed, and you know, Dex starts to crash out a bit. But we see Nadim's full video, a dying declaration talking about all the things that he witnessed and did in the dirty cops working for Fisk. And Foggy says that the dying declaration is their silver bullet to take down Fisk. We gotta tell Matt before he kills Fisk. You know, like, this dying declaration can be used in the court of law against Fisk. We then cut over to Dex, and he comes to the address that Matt told him to come to, and Dex finds Julie's frozen dead body, and Matt calls him, trying to get through to him that it was Fisk the whole time, and that Fisk made him into a murderer, and that Fisk doesn't deserve happily ever after with his wedding. And then Dex shows up at the hotel as Daredevil, driving the car, and he looks over and he's got Julie's dead body in the passenger seat, and you're like, whew, this guy's a psycho. But Fisk and Vanessa get married, and they go to have their first dance, and as they are dancing, everyone's phones start going off, and the Nadim's dying declaration is going viral everywhere, and Dex shows up on stage with the band and makes a toast to them, and he's dressed as Daredevil. He's on the stage and he goes, "Julie and I wish you all the best," and he throws the mic at Fisk's head to kill him, but Matt stops him from killing him, because only Matt will be killing Fisk today. But Vanessa tells Fisk that we should run and be smart, but Fisk is like, no, I will protect you, and Matt's there, so Matt and them start fighting, and Matt shows up to save the lady in the security room and asks her to stop the elevator so that no one can stop Matt from what he's about to do, and he wants to go kill Fisk himself. So then we get Matt v. Fisk, and they trash Fisk's penthouse, and then Dex comes in and joins the fight, and we get kind of like a 1v1v1 instead of like a 2v1. We get, you know, a free-for-all, and Dex tries to hit Vanessa with like an object, and Matt protects Vanessa for some reason, but, you know, protects her. But Fisk grabs Dex and breaks Dex back on the wall and just breaks him almost in half on the wall, snapping his spine and paralyzing Dex. But then Matt beats Fisk and blood spatters on the rabbit in the snowstorm, which is maybe the new napkin, dirty napkin thing that theory that I was saying at the beginning of this episode. Bunch of blood splatters on the rabbit in the snowstorm, and we actually see that this blood splatter in painting will return at some point in Daredevil Born Again, but we haven't seen it yet. But as Matt's beating up Fisk, we see that Fisk wants Matt to kill him, and Matt's like, no, I won't kill you because it's what you want, so now spitefully I won't kill you. And Matt and Fisk make a deal that he is going to go to prison and he will keep Matt's secret and not go after Karen Page, and Matt will leave his precious Vanessa alone, and they make a deal and shake on it. And Mahoney comes in to arrest Fisk, and we see that Dex is paralyzed on the ground, and he's like, that's not the real Daredevil. And the guy's like, how do you know? And we get this great shot of Matt walking away, and he's like, points, he's like, because that's the real Daredevil. And he just kind of walks out, and you're just like, whoa, you know, it's like got this good music to it. I've always loved the shot. It's just a great shot. And then as Matt walks out a winner, we see him perched up on a rooftop like a gargoyle, and you're like, ah, man, the man in black is back and is Daredevil again, but he is, you know, it kind of looks like Daredevil Season 1 Daredevil, but this is like the end of the season. You're like, damn, he didn't even get the chance to wear the full Daredevil suit in Season 3. They just said, fuck it, we're not even going to do it. We then see Matt goes to see his mother and tells her that Father Lantham's last words were forgive us. And he kind of, you know, starts to forgive them a bit. And, but maybe Matt's life is all a part of God's plan, he thinks. And that, you know, even though his mom left him and his dad died, and everything that has happened to Matt. Matt's thinking that it wouldn't have made him into the man he was today if none of those things happened. So he's kind of thinking maybe it is all God's plan after all. And he's kind of restored his faith in humanity and God and everything. And Matt's kind of back to being Daredevil, but now he's lost Father Lantham, who was like his guy in his corner that knew his identity, but also knew his good and bad. You know what I mean? But Sister Maggie's still out there somewhere, so maybe she'll return in Daredevil Season 4. Who knows? Or Born Again, pretty much Daredevil Season 4. But we see Matt speaks at Father Lantham's funeral and speaks about how Father Lantham counseled Matt to be brave enough to forgive and to be a man without fear, which is just a little Daredevil's comic nod, the man without fear. And then we see Karen and Matt talk to each other outside of the church, and Matt's glad that she told him about, her killing Wesley and her brother, and, is glad that they're talking again. And Foggy, that we then see, breaks things off with Marcy and also drops out of the DA race to go back to being Nelson and MURDOCK. And then we see the trio celebrating at Nelson Meets, and Foggy writes the legendary napkin, Nelson, MURDOCK, and Paige, and Karen says she's not a lawyer, but Matt says she's a hell of an investigator and a hell of a lot more stable than Jessica Jones. And I was like, damn, Jessica Jones just catching strays in the finale here? Why? Like, poor Jessica. So we end on Nelson, MURDOCK, and Paige, and they're going to start their law firm together, and that's the last time we see the three of them. But this season closes on Dex getting his back fused back together, and they zoom in on his eyes as he wakes up in surgery, and the logo on his eye looks like the Bullseye logo. And the credits roll on Season 3 of Daredevil, leading us into 7 years later into the episode 1 of Daredevil Born Again, where Daredevil's back, but Bullseye as Ben Poindexter returns for episode 1 of Daredevil Born Again. Breakdowns currently out on the channel. Go check out Season 1, Season 2 recaps and summaries. This has been now a full Defenders and Season 3 recap and summary, although Defenders was very brief at the beginning. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know these are longer videos, maybe for the people at work that just want to put something on and listen in the background. I really appreciate every single one of you that clicked on these videos. And if you stuck around to all the way through to the end, I really can't say enough great things about you. You are my favorite human being alive. I love you. If you've watched all seasons, Season 1, Season 2, Season 3, and you've been watching the Daredevil breakdowns, you are a huge fan and supporter of this channel, and I appreciate you so much. And I know you're probably already subscribed, but for the people that aren't, that would like to support the channel, the best way to do that is by liking this video, subscribing if you're new and you haven't already, hitting that bell so you get notifications when the new videos come out. And the best way to support and share this video with a friend, and comment, like, do all the things that help the videos get into the algorithm. And please, 98% of you aren't subscribed, so subscribe if you haven't. And thank you guys once again so much. My name is Big Cam. Thank you so much, and I will see you beautiful people in the next video. Daredevil Born Again episode 4 breakdowns come out this week. Happy St. Patty's Day. It's crazy week, crazy lots going on, but this video will be coming out this week for y'all. More unboxings. Comment below, would you rather see a Lego content or unboxing content coming out soon? But that's all from me, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Peace.